They said the official deemed that Clark intentionally made contact, therefore a technical foul was assessed. No, you don't. That is a terrible call.
She got fouled twice and pushed into you. If you would have called one of the fouls, this wouldn't have been an issue.
What happens when a referee makes a call so questionable that the league itself has to erase it just hours later? For Caitlin Clark, it wasn't just another technical foul. It was technical number 8, a number that would have forced her to miss one of the biggest games on Indiana's schedule. But then something unusual happened. The WNBA reviewed the play and completely reversed the decision. Clark was chasing a loose ball when she lost her balance and made contact with an official. The referee ruled that Clark intentionally made contact and assessed her a technical foul. Because it was her 8th technical of the season, the call automatically triggered a 1-game suspension. That meant Clark could have been forced to sit out Indiana's matchup against the New York Liberty. But almost immediately, the decision came under fire. The replay appeared to show something very different. Clark had already been bumped while moving at full speed. She was off balance, trying to recover, and simply had nowhere to go. There was no obvious shove, no aggressive movement toward the official, no indication that she was deliberately trying to make contact. It looked like momentum, and even Clark herself described it that way. After the game, she remained remarkably calm. She explained that the contact was unintentional and that she hadn't even said anything to the official. More importantly, she confidently told reporters she'd see them on Tuesday, suggesting she already believed the suspension would eventually disappear. Her coach, Stephanie White, was much more direct. White called the decision a bad call and argued that officials should have recognized the situation for what it was: incidental contact from a player who was moving too quickly to stop herself. And that is where the controversy became much bigger than one technical foul. Because this wasn't Clark's first strange technical. It was her 8th. Throughout the season, Clark had already been involved in several controversial situations. Technical fouls had come from moments involving clapping, gestures, frustration, and interactions that many fans believed were being interpreted more harshly than similar actions by other players. Individually, each decision could be defended as a judgment call. But when they keep happening to the same player, fans naturally start asking questions. Why does Clark seem to receive so little benefit of the doubt? Why does a player who gets fouled repeatedly sometimes end up being punished for reacting to those fouls? And why did this particular incident escalate all the way to a suspension when the replay appeared to show accidental contact? Those questions exploded online. Fans weren't simply debating a referee's decision. They were questioning whether the officiating standard being applied to Clark was consistent with the standard applied to everyone else. And that distinction matters. Mistakes happen in sports. Referees are human. They miss calls. They make bad calls. That's part of competition. But when an obviously questionable call directly affects one of the league's biggest stars, the consequences become much larger. Clark missing the game against the Liberty wouldn't have been a minor storyline. It would have changed one of Indiana's biggest matchups and created another massive conversation around officiating instead of basketball. The Indiana Fever appealed the decision. And then came the twist. The WNBA rescinded the technical foul. Just like that, Clark's total dropped back to 7. The suspension disappeared, and she was cleared to play against New York. The reversal came remarkably quickly, which made the situation even more unusual. The league's final decision essentially confirmed what Clark, her coach, and countless viewers had already argued. There wasn't enough evidence to treat the contact as intentional. And credit where it's due, the league did ultimately correct the mistake. But that's also what makes the original call so frustrating. If the replay made the situation clear enough for the league to reverse the decision so quickly, why wasn't that same judgment applied in the first place? That question isn't just about Caitlin Clark. It's about trust. Players need to trust officials, coaches need to trust the league, and fans need to believe that the same rules are being applied consistently. When that trust disappears, every whistle becomes suspicious. Every technical becomes a debate. Every controversial moment becomes another piece of evidence in an argument that nobody wants to have. And for Clark, that argument has followed her throughout the season. The attention surrounding her is enormous. Every game is watched closely. Every reaction is analyzed. Every disagreement with an official can become a headline. That level of attention comes with being one of the biggest stars in women's basketball. But it also means the league has an even greater responsibility to make sure its officiating appears fair and consistent. Because the worst possible outcome isn't simply a bad call. It's the perception that the call was personal. Whether that perception is accurate or not, the league has to understand how damaging it can become when the same player repeatedly finds herself at the center of controversial officiating decisions. And there is another problem. Every time a controversy like this happens, the conversation moves away from basketball. Instead of discussing Indiana's performance, Clark's playmaking, the team's strategy, or the upcoming matchup with New York, everyone is talking about referees. That's not good for Clark. It's not good for the Fever. And ultimately, it's not good for the Wamba. The league is experiencing enormous attention, and controversies like this can generate millions of views. But attention isn't always positive attention. Fans want to see the players decide games. They want dramatic finishes, incredible shots, rivalries, and competition. They don't want the officials becoming the main story. For now, though, Clark avoided the suspension. The technical foul is gone. The 8th technical never officially became the 8th, and Clark was able to take the court against the Liberty instead of watching from the sidelines. But the bigger issue remains. One rescinded technical doesn't erase an entire season of controversy. It doesn't answer why Clark has accumulated so many technical fouls, or why so many of her interactions with officials become major talking points. And it certainly doesn't guarantee the next controversial whistle won't happen tomorrow. That's why this story may be far from over. The league corrected this decision. Now the real question is whether it can prevent situations like this from happening again. Because Caitlin Clark shouldn't need an appeal, a public controversy, and a league review every time a questionable whistle threatens to take her out of a major game. The players should decide the games. The officials should enforce the rules. And the league should make sure both sides can trust the system. This time, the system eventually got it right. But the fact that it had to be corrected in the first place is exactly why so many fans are still asking questions. And if the next controversial call comes against Clark, everyone will be watching the replay a little more closely.